The golden rays of the setting sun painted the meadow in soft, warm hues, while the breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and distant rain. Lila, a young girl with the heart of an adventurer, stood at the edge of the meadow, staring at the line of ancient trees ahead. She could hear the sound of birds singing their last songs of the day, and yet something felt different. Something stirred in the very air around her. "Today," she whispered to herself. "Today is the day." With a sense of purpose, she walked toward the trees, her eyes glimmering with excitement. The moment her foot brushed against the forest's edge, a strange sensation swept over her, a tingling that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. Then a flash of light caught her eye. She paused, eyes wide. Was it the glint of treasure, or something more mysterious? With a deep breath, she stepped into the shadows of the trees, her heart pounding in anticipation. As Lila ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew cooler, and the sounds of the meadow faded into the distance. The trees closed in around her, their towering forms creating a canopy of dark leaves that blocked out much of the sky. The only light came from the soft glow of the flickering light ahead. "What is this place?" Lila whispered to herself, her voice barely audible in the stillness of the forest. Her heart pounded in her chest as she moved forward, the shadows shifting around her like living things. Every step seemed to echo, a reminder of how alone she felt in this strange, enchanted forest. But she couldn't turn back now. The light was too close, too alluring. It seemed to be pulling her in, promising something wondrous and mysterious. "I have to find out," she murmured, her voice filled with both determination and wonder. Lila continued her journey, the light growing brighter as she drew closer. The path through the trees became narrower, and the air around her thickened, almost as though the forest was alive, breathing with her. Then, as she rounded a bend in the trail, the light broke through the trees, flooding the clearing ahead. In the center, a small pond shimmered, its waters reflecting the golden light of a hidden sun. The light was coming from a cluster of strange glowing flowers that surrounded the water, their petals luminous and delicate. "Incredible," Lila breathed, her voice filled with awe. She stepped closer to the pond, kneeling beside the water, entranced by the sight before her. The air was filled with a soft, melodic hum, and Lila realized that the flowers weren't just glowing, they were singing, each petal vibrating with the melody of the forest. As Lila touched the surface of the water, ripples spread out from her fingertips, distorting the reflection of the glowing flowers. Suddenly, a soft voice broke the silence. "You've found it," the voice said, its tone warm and melodic. Lila jumped back, looking around the clearing. There was no one there. The voice spoke again, this time closer. "You've come to the heart of the forest, little one. Do you understand what that means?" Lila looked around, trying to locate the source of the voice. The trees around her seemed to lean in closer, their branches creaking in the wind. "I don't understand," Lila said, her voice trembling. "What is this place? What do you want from me?" The voice laughed softly, a gentle sound that made Lila feel both comforted and uneasy. "Nothing is required of you, child," the voice said. "But everything will be revealed." The voice grew quieter, fading into the wind as the last words echoed in Lila's mind. "Everything will be revealed." Lila stood still for a moment, the weight of the words sinking in. The forest around her seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her next move. Slowly she stood up, her legs unsteady but her heart filled with a new sense of determination. The light of the glowing flowers flickered in the corner of her eye, reminding her of the incredible magic hidden within the forest. Lila stepped away from the pond, her gaze lingering on the flowers as they hummed softly. "I have to know more," she whispered to herself. With one last glance at the pond, Lila turned and walked deeper into the forest, her heart beating with the promise of new adventures, and the forest, it seemed, was ready to show her the way. The deeper Lila walked into the forest, the darker it became, as if the very air was thickening with secrets. The towering trees seemed to bend closer, their limbs interlocking high above, blocking out much of the remaining light. Despite the shadowed canopy, There was a soft, eerie glow beneath the underbrush. Her steps were cautious, each one echoing softly in the stillness. The forest seemed to hum with energy, almost as though it were alive. Lila's heart raced as she felt both the wonder and danger of this enchanted place. "What am I walking into?" she whispered under her breath. The path before her was narrow, winding, and overgrown, as though no one had traveled it for years, or perhaps decades. A faint sound of movement in the bushes caught her attention, and her breath caught in her throat. She held her ground, listening intently. It wasn't the wind. It was something else. Her curiosity urged her forward, but a sense of caution lingered. The rustling from the underbrush grew louder, and Lila's heart skipped a beat. She instinctively reached for the small pouch hanging from her waist, fingers brushing the handle of a tiny knife she kept for safety. She took a deep breath, calming herself, and stepped forward. As she moved closer to the sound, the bushes parted, revealing a creature unlike any she had seen before. It was small, no taller than her waist, with shimmering wings like those of a butterfly, though they were iridescent and flickering in the dim light. It looked at her curiously, its large eyes glowing as soft violet. The creature cocked its head to one side before it chirped softly and fluttered a few inches into the air, as if inviting her to follow. "What are you?" Lila asked in a hushed voice, almost not believing her eyes. The creature fluttered again, as if beckoning her onward, its wings creating a gentle breeze that smelled of honey and wildflowers. The creature fluttered ahead, looking back over its shoulder as if checking to see if Lila was still following. With a deep breath, Lila took the first step after it, her eyes fixed on the glowing creature ahead. The creature led her deeper into the forest, the path becoming more and more obscured by thick underbrush and vines. The humming sound that had filled the air before was now louder, reverberating through the trees like a soft, soothing song. "Where are you taking me?" Lila asked softly, though she had no expectation of receiving an answer. The creature paused at the edge of a small clearing, hovering just above a large flat stone covered in moss. It flicked its wings again, drawing Lila's attention to the stone. As Lila approached, she noticed intricate symbols carved into its surface, glowing faintly. "What is this?" she wondered aloud, kneeling to inspect the stone more closely. Lila ran her fingers over the symbols carved into the stone, feeling a slight warmth radiate from them. The humming sound from before grew louder, more intense, as though the stone itself was resonating with an unseen power. Suddenly, the air around her crackled, and the creature darted back, its wings fluttering rapidly. "What's happening?" Lila gasped as the stone beneath her hand began to glow brighter. The symbols shifted, rearranging themselves before her eyes. The ground trembled slightly, and a deep, rumbling voice echoed through the clearing, though there was no one else present. "You have been chosen," the voice intoned, sending chills down her spine. "Your journey begins now." The stone before her cracked open, revealing a glowing orb inside. Lila stepped back, heart racing as the orb pulsed with energy. The creature hovered around her, chirping in excitement. "Chosen for what?" Lila whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. The glowing orb pulsated with an energy that seemed to vibrate through the air, and Lila instinctively reached out, her fingers brushing the surface. The moment her touch made contact, the orb flared with light, and a wave of warmth spread through her. The voice returned, louder now, almost as though it was inside her mind. "The path is set before you, child. You must embrace the gift you have been given, or it will be lost forever." Lila pulled her hand back, the light from the orb dimming slightly. She felt a surge of something deep within her, a connection to the forest itself. The creature chirped once more and darted away, its wings carrying it toward the trees. With a deep breath, Lila followed, the orb's faint glow still lighting her way. "I don't know what's happening," she murmured, "but I have to see this through." The path ahead was still unclear, but the magic was now a part of her, urging her forward, drawing her deeper into the mysteries of the forest. Lila moved through the forest, the orb's glow faint but constant in her hand. The path ahead seemed endless, the trees towering like silent sentinels. Her thoughts raced, What was happening? What did the voice mean by embracing the gift? She could feel the pulse of energy within the orb, but it was unclear how it connected to her, or why she was the one chosen. Suddenly, a breeze stirred the air, and the scent of lavender filled the clearing. Lila stopped and looked around, her heart pounding. From the trees ahead, a soft voice drifted toward her, sweet and melodic. "The forest speaks to those who listen," the voice said. Lila stepped forward, following the sound. As she did, the forest opened up, revealing a hidden glade bathed in golden light. At the center stood a stone pedestal, empty but waiting. The voice whispered again, "Place the orb here, and your true path will be revealed." With a deep breath, Lila approached the pedestal, her fingers tightening around the orb. The closer she got, the more the energy within the orb seemed to hum in her hands. It was as if the stone pedestal was calling to it, drawing out a response. She hesitated for a moment, her heart racing, but then, as though instinctively, she stepped forward and placed the orb gently on the pedestal. The moment it touched the stone, the forest around her seemed to hold its breath. A sudden brilliant light erupted from the orb, spilling over the glade and enveloping everything in its glow. Lila gasped, shielding her eyes as the ground beneath her feet trembled. The voice, once soft and distant, now boomed like thunder. "The path is chosen, and the forest awakens. Your journey is now bound to this land." The light subsided, leaving behind a new presence, as though something ancient had stirred. The forest's energy surged around her, and Lila could feel it in every fiber of her being. Her heart raced with excitement and fear. The voice that had guided her now spoke in a gentler tone, as if calming her. "The gift is not simply power, child. It is a connection, a bond between you and the forest that must be nurtured." The air shimmered before her, and slowly, the ground began to shift, forming a new path ahead, lined with soft, glowing stones. The trees on either side of the path opened like doors, their branches parting to reveal a hidden sanctuary. "Follow the path," the voice continued. "It will lead you to the heart of this land, where your true purpose awaits." Lila took a hesitant step forward, her mind swirling with questions, but the promise of discovery pulled her onward. With each step, the forest seemed to embrace her, its energy flowing through her like a steady current. As she followed the glowing path, the sounds of the forest became more pronounced, each whisper of wind, every rustle of leaves, and the distant call of a bird, all seemed to carry meaning. The trees themselves appeared to be watching her, their bark etched with symbols that seemed to shift in the light. Eventually the path opened into a wide clearing, and in the center, an ancient tree stood, its trunk massive and twisted, its roots sprawling across the ground like veins of the earth. The voice spoke again, reverberating in the clearing. "This is the heart of the forest, the place where all life converges. It is here that your bond will be sealed." The tree's branches swayed gently, and a soft golden light emanated from the center of its trunk. Lila approached, her heart pounding, as the air around her filled with a deep resonant hum. "What do I do now?" she whispered, feeling the weight of the forest's presence upon her. Lila stepped closer to the ancient tree, the air around her thick with magic. As she neared the glowing trunk, a gentle wind picked up, swirling around her like a living thing. "Place your hands upon the tree," the voice urged, soft but insistent. Lila hesitated for only a moment before placing both palms against the smooth bark. A surge of warmth spread through her, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to pulse with life. The golden light from the tree intensified, enveloping her in its glow. She closed her eyes, feeling the forest's energy flowing through her like a river of life. "This is your bond, child," the voice whispered. "The forest is yours to protect, just as you are its keeper." A deep sense of peace settled over her, and when Lila opened her eyes, the world seemed to shimmer with newfound clarity. The tree's glow faded, and the forest around her seemed to exhale, as if satisfied. The journey had only just begun. Lila stood before the great tree, the bond between her and the forest now palpable in her very being. The air was calm, the soft rustling of the leaves above like a lullaby. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. But then, from the depths of the forest, a low growl echoed through the trees, breaking the silence. Lila's heart raced, and her grip tightened around the orb she still carried. The voice which had guided her thus far returned, but this time it was different. It was urgent. "The forest is not safe," the voice warned. "There are those who seek to disturb the balance. You must act now." Lila's eyes widened, her thoughts racing. She had just begun to understand her connection to this land, and now it seemed there was danger threatening it. She had no choice but to follow the call. The trees seemed to part ahead, revealing a path leading deeper into the forest. "I'm ready," she whispered, stepping forward with newfound resolve. As Lila ventured deeper into the forest, the growl from earlier lingered in her mind. Her footsteps echoed in the stillness, each one a reminder that she was alone on this journey. The deeper she went, the more the forest seemed to change. The trees, once friendly and welcoming, now seemed darker, their trunks twisted and gnarled. The light from the orb flickered in her hand, casting long, eerie shadows on the ground. The voice spoke again, this time softer, but no less insistent. "Beware the creatures that lurk in these shadows. They seek to corrupt the land." Lila's breath caught in her throat. "Creatures?" she asked aloud, her voice shaking. A sudden rustle in the bushes answered her, and from the darkness a pair of glowing eyes watched her. The creatures were real, and they were closer than she thought. The creature in the shadows stepped forward, its eyes glowing brighter as it emerged into the dim light. Lila gasped as it came into full view, a massive, wolf-like creature with dark matted fur, its body rippling with unnatural energy. The growl from earlier emanated from deep within its chest. It bared its teeth, its eyes locked on Lila, as if sensing her fear. "Stay back," Lila said, her voice more confident than she felt. The creature growled again, low and menacing. "You are in my domain now," it hissed. Lila's grip tightened on the orb, its glow brightening in response. The creature lunged, but before it could reach her, a bright flash of light burst from the orb, sending the creature stumbling back. It howled in pain, its body flickering as though it were made of smoke. "This forest belongs to no one," it snarled, disappearing into the shadows. Lila stood frozen, her heart pounding. "What was that?" she whispered, looking down at the orb, which had now gone dim again. The creature's retreat left a heavy silence in the air. Lila stood still for a long moment, her heart racing. She didn't know what that creature was, but it was clear that it was connected to the darkness creeping into the forest. The voice returned, this time softer, but full of meaning. "The balance of the forest is breaking. The creatures that have long slumbered are awakening, drawn by the disturbance you caused." Lila's brow furrowed. "I didn't cause this," she said, her voice shaking. "Did I?" The voice was quiet for a moment, before responding. "The forest magic flows through you now. You must protect it, or all will be lost." The air seemed to grow colder, and the trees around her shifted, their branches twisting into unnatural shapes. Lila realized that she was not just an observer in this land, she was its protector. But how could she stop the corruption that was already spreading? The answer, she felt, was somewhere deeper in the forest. Lila moved forward, her steps measured and careful. She could feel the weight of the forest's magic pressing down on her, the trees whispering warnings in a language she didn't understand. Every rustle of leaves, every shift in the shadows, seemed to hold the forest's breath. Her resolve hardened as she pressed onward. She would find the source of the disturbance. She had to. After what felt like hours, the trees parted once again, revealing a hidden grove. In the center stood a large stone archway, covered in moss and vines. The archway hummed with energy, its surface etched with the same symbols she had seen on the pedestal. Lila approached cautiously, her hand reaching out to touch the stone. As her fingers made contact, the archway glowed brightly, and a doorway appeared in the center. A strange swirling mist billowed from the archway. "This is it," Lila whispered, stepping toward the doorway. This is where it all begins. Lila stepped through the glowing archway, her heart racing. The swirling mist enveloped her, its cool touch sending a shiver down her spine. She felt as though she were being pulled into another world, one that existed just beyond the veil of the familiar. As the mist cleared, she found herself in a new part of the forest, a forest that felt even older, as if it held memories from long before her arrival. The trees here were larger, their trunks wider, and their branches twisted into intricate shapes that seemed to stretch into the heavens. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient wood. The voice that had guided her all this time spoke again, but this time it felt closer, as though it was speaking directly to her. "You have crossed into the heart of the forest," it said. "Here the magic flows freely, but it is also fragile. Protect it, and you will find the answers you seek." Lila stood still for a moment, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar land ahead. The journey had taken her to a place of unimaginable beauty and danger. The deeper Lila ventured, the more she felt the weight of the forest's magic pressing against her. It was as if the very air itself held a secret, waiting to be uncovered. The trees whispered to each other in a language that was ancient and unintelligible to her, yet there was a familiarity to the sound, like a forgotten song. Her eyes darted around, watching for any movement, any sign that she was not alone. Then ahead, she saw something unusual, a flicker of light between the trees. Cautiously, she approached, her senses on high alert. As she drew closer, the light grew brighter, and she found herself standing before a small crystal-clear pond, its surface reflecting the shimmering light of the forest. At the center of the pond floated a glowing flower, its petals radiating with an otherworldly glow. The voice spoke again, softer now. "This is the source of the forest's magic, child. Guard it well." Lila knelt at the edge of the pond, her fingers hovering just above the water's surface. She could feel the magic in the air, its energy vibrating beneath her skin. The flower's glow seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, as though it was alive, responding to her presence. As she reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the water, a ripple spread across the pond, and the glow of the flower intensified. The voice spoke again, this time with a sense of urgency. "The magic is fragile," it warned. "Do not disturb it more than necessary." Lila pulled her hand back, her heart pounding. She knew the forest was alive, but this connection, this bond, was deeper than she had imagined. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. The forest seemed to hold its breath before the voice answered. "To protect the magic, you must find the root of the disturbance. It lies deeper in the forest, where the shadows grow long and the light fades." Lila stood up, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. The voice had told her what she needed to do, find the source of the disturbance and protect the magic of the forest. But where could she begin? The forest seemed endless, its paths twisting and turning in ways that defied logic. As she hesitated, a rustle in the bushes caught her attention. Lila's heart skipped a beat. From the shadows, a creature emerged, part wolf, part shadow, its form flickering in and out of existence. Its glowing eyes locked onto hers, and it growled softly. Lila instinctively reached for the orb at her waist, but before she could act, the creature vanished into the trees. "You are not ready," a voice whispered. But this time it wasn't the voice she had come to know. It was darker, filled with malice. "The forest has other plans for you." Lila's breath caught in her throat as she looked around, unsure of where to go next. Lila stood frozen in the clearing, her eyes scanning the trees around her, waiting for the creature to reappear. The air was thick with the hum of magic, and the forest seemed to be holding its breath. She knew she couldn't stay here forever. The voice had warned her, there was a disturbance in the forest, and it was growing stronger. She had to move, to find the source of the corruption, before it consumed everything. But the forest was not going to make it easy. The shadows seemed to stretch farther than before, and the trees twisted in unnatural ways. With a deep breath, Lila set her jaw and stepped forward. The creature may have vanished, but the danger remained. The light from the orb flickered in her hand, urging her onward. As she walked deeper into the forest, The trees parted once more, revealing another path, darker and more twisted than the one she had already traveled. This was the way forward, the path that would lead her to the heart of the disturbance. The path before Lila twisted like a serpent through the forest, the trees growing more twisted and dark with each step she took. The light from her orb flickered, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. Her footsteps were muffled by the thick, damp ground beneath her, and the air grew heavy with the scent of moss and decay. She had felt the forest's pulse growing stronger, its heartbeat in sync with her own. "I'm getting closer," she whispered to herself. The path ahead seemed to stretch into infinity, but she had no choice but to keep moving. The forest, once alive with magic, now felt more like a prison, its energy warped by the darkness that had taken root deep within. The voice that had guided her before was silent now, leaving her to face whatever lay ahead alone. A soft rustle in the trees broke the silence, and Lila froze, her heart racing. The shadows had grown longer, and the forest had become a place of danger, its creatures hiding in the dark. The air shifted, and Lila felt a chill run down her spine. She had been walking for what felt like hours, but the forest seemed to grow darker the deeper she went. The whispering voices of the trees were now faint, as if they were retreating into the shadows. The path narrowed, and soon she found herself standing in front of a towering dark wall of thorns and vines. It blocked her way completely, its twisted branches sharp as daggers, and the air around it was thick with a sense of foreboding. Lila stepped closer, her heart pounding. The orb in her hand pulsed with light, but the thorns didn't move. She hesitated, unsure of what to do next. "There has to be a way through," she murmured, pressing her palm against the cool surface of the thorns. As she did, the orb flickered brighter, and the thorns seemed to shudder, as though reacting to her touch. Slowly, the vines began to part, revealing a small opening. As the vines parted, Lila cautiously stepped through the opening, the orb's light guiding her way. The moment she passed through, the atmosphere seemed to shift, the air growing heavier and thicker. The path ahead was shrouded in mist, and the trees around her were tall and silent, their trunks black as night. She felt the forest's pulse beat louder now, as though it were calling her deeper into its heart. But something felt wrong. There was no magic here, no life, only the remnants of something long forgotten. "What happened here?" Lila whispered, her voice barely carrying over the silence. The mist thickened, swirling around her feet, and a low, guttural growl broke through the quiet. Lila froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The growl came again, closer this time. She turned, her hand instinctively reaching for the knife at her waist. The shadows around her shifted, and the growl turned into a deep, menacing laugh. The growl turned into a deep, terrifying laugh, and Lila's eyes snapped to the shadows. From the darkness a creature emerged, its form flickering in and out of existence, its body half made of shadow and half of something more corporeal. It was a monstrous thing, its glowing red eyes fixed on her with malicious intent. "You are the forest's new protector?" the creature hissed, its voice low and dripping with venom. "How amusing." Lila stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't want to fight you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The creature laughed again, its form shifting in the mist. "Then you are weak, child. You will not survive here." With a sudden terrifying movement, it lunged toward her, claws outstretched. Lila's hand tightened around the orb, and instinctively she raised it in front of her. The orb flared with bright light, and the creature recoiled, hissing in pain. "You are not ready for this," the creature spat, before vanishing into the mist. The creature's vanishing left a heavy silence in the air, and Lila's pulse thudded in her ears. She stood there, the glowing orb still in her hand, the light from it flickering weakly in the mist. "What do I do now?" she whispered to herself, her voice shaking. The voice that had guided her spoke again, softer this time. "You have taken the first step, child, but the path is far from over. The forest's balance is in your hands. You must seek the heart of the darkness." Lila nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the shadowed path ahead. The mist seemed to part just slightly, revealing a narrow way forward. "I can do this," she murmured, her voice filled with a newfound resolve. With her heart set on her mission, she stepped forward, the orb's light illuminating the path before her. The journey was far from over, but she now knew one thing for certain: she would protect the magic of the forest, no matter what it took. Lila moved cautiously through the mist, the orb's light flickering weakly in her hand. The further she ventured, the more oppressive the forest became. The trees, once majestic and welcoming, now appeared twisted and unnatural, their branches gnarly like twisted hands. The soft hum of the forest's magic had quieted to an unsettling silence. Her steps were slow, deliberate, each footfall heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. She could feel the presence of something watching her, the air thick with unseen eyes. "The heart of the darkness," Lila whispered, her voice a quiet tremor. "It's somewhere up ahead." The voice, though still silent, seemed to answer her thoughts. The ground beneath her feet was now thick with vines, the path narrowing and twisting. It was as though the forest itself was testing her resolve. "I'm not afraid," Lila said firmly, the glow of the orb flaring slightly in response. She pressed on, the path ahead disappearing into the gloom. The further Lila went, the more the mist thickened, swallowing everything around her in an ethereal fog. The once vibrant trees now seemed like twisted, shadowy silhouettes, their bark dark and scarred. The glow from the orb illuminated the path just enough to keep her moving, but the forest felt alive in a way that sent a shiver down her spine. The shadows between the trees seemed to move, flickering like ghosts. A distant howl echoed through the forest, a reminder that the creatures of darkness still lurked nearby. "What is this place?" Lila muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "What is waiting for me here?" The mist swirled before her, and as it parted, she saw what lay ahead. A massive structure rising from the ground, its silhouette dark and imposing against the backdrop of the twisted trees. The air around it seemed to vibrate with an ancient dark power. Lila approached the massive structure cautiously, every instinct telling her to turn back. The air around the building felt heavy, thick with the weight of ancient magic. The closer she got, the more she felt the pull of the darkness, like it was reaching out to draw her in. The glowing orb in her hand flickered again, the light growing dim as the structure loomed before her. She could hear whispers now, soft voices floating on the wind. "This is where the magic began," one voice whispered. "This is where it will end." Lila's breath caught in her throat. The structure before her was not a mere building. It was a fortress, one that had stood for centuries, its walls covered in ancient runes. "I have to go in," Lila whispered, though doubt and fear twisted in her chest. The orb in her hand pulsed again, brighter this time, urging her onward. "I have to stop this." Lila stepped inside the fortress, her heart pounding in her chest. The air inside was thick with dust, and the walls were lined with strange symbols, their glow dim and haunting. The further she walked, the darker it became, the light from the orb barely cutting through the shadows. A soft, eerie laugh echoed through the halls, and Lila froze, her breath catching in her throat. "You are brave, child," a voice whispered, sending a shiver down her spine. "But you are not the first to come here." Lila's eyes darted around the room, but there was no one to be seen. The walls seemed to close in on her as the laugh grew louder, and then, from the shadows, something moved, a figure, dark and tall, its form obscured by the darkness. "You will fail," it whispered, stepping into the faint light of the orb's glow. "The forest is mine now." The figure stepped closer, its shape becoming clearer. It was tall, its form cloaked in shadows, with glowing red eyes that pierced through the darkness. "You have no idea what you're up against, do you?" the figure taunted, its voice deep and resonant. "The forest belongs to me now. Your magic is nothing but a flicker in the darkness." Lila's grip tightened around the orb, and she stepped forward, standing her ground. "I will stop you," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. The orb in her hand flared with light, casting the figure's shadow against the walls. The figure sneered, but the light from the orb seemed to weaken its power. "We'll see about that," it hissed, disappearing into the shadows. Lila knew that this was only the beginning. There was more to this darkness than she had imagined. But she was ready. The forest had chosen her, and she would protect it, no matter the cost.